Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. Now, context for this one, I've always tried to use this channel to share information with viewers that can be used to make their experience in various games easier, and primarily that has been Project Zomboid for me. Now, over the last couple of years, I've accumulated a whole lot of information to provide, and with that, there's been some more obscure facts that I've found along the way. So, this video is dedicated to all those weird and wonderful quirks about Project Zomboid, and all the strange and interesting facts that there are about the game, whether it's in-game or about the game and its history. I'll aim to include them all in this video. If you get something useful from this or find it entertaining, you can do me a huge favor by dropping it a like or subscribing to the channel for some more videos just like this one. Okay, so let's kick things off with a couple of obscure in-game facts that you might not know. Now, I don't know about all of you guys, but I don't make a habit of carrying around a spoon or a fork with me in Project Zomboid playthroughs. For that reason, I never knew that this very slight detail even existed. So, if you do take the time to actually pick up a spoon and carry one in your inventory, some of your eating animations will actually change to make use of the utensil. Now, there was a rumor that this actually sped up your eating times as well, but in testing, both with or without a utensil, takes about 5 seconds to finish eating. There doesn't seem to be any discernible difference there. All the same, something that I didn't know until recently. Now, in a similar vein to the first obscure fact that I've just mentioned, we move on to fitness and exercise in Project Zomboid. Now, this is a part of the game that I'll admit I haven't spent much time with. Art imitates life, I suppose. Anyway, what I didn't realize was that in the first 4 levels of fitness, your character's animations will actually be different to those after you reach fitness level 5. Once you reach this point, your character will look as though they've refined their technique and that they are more practiced in completing regular exercise. It doesn't do anything in the way of actually helping with XP gains or anything like that, but still, it's a neat little feature that didn't need to be included, but it's still nice to see. And I think it's pretty safe to assume that most people actually don't know about this one. Now, this next one was actually in a YouTube short that I did pretty recently, and some of the comments actually had a method that was seemingly even easier than the one I had advertised. So, every Project Zomboid player likes to use a location for a safe house occasionally that doesn't have all the facilities you need. It gives you a challenge and you can renovate a location to become the perfect apocalypse survival shelter, right? Well, in this situation, you'll sometimes be missing an oven. Now, to take an oven from a location, you require level 3 electrical. Not many players want to grind to that point, so often a propane barbecue or wood-fired barbecue is the next best option. If you'd like to continue using something that uses electricity, however, deep fat fryers can actually be used just the same as an oven, and only requires level 2 electrical skill to remove from their spawn points. This on its own is pretty useful. Now, this was the tip that I provided in the YouTube short, but I had a bunch of comments saying that I could take a coffee machine and use them as an oven instead, so I gave this a go. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like this is true right now, at least in my testing. I could take the machine just fine, but was unable to place any items into it for cooking. So it looks like for now, everything is getting deep fried instead. Alright, so here's another one for you. Most of you probably already know that there's a bunch of broadcasts on both the radio and televisions in Project Zomboid from news channels documenting the events during the early outbreak. Now, what you might not know is that the more harrowing broadcasts will actually cause your character to panic if they are within the range of the TV or radio at the time it is playing. One of these, for example, is a priest making his final prayer whilst being eaten alive by the infected. Dark stuff, and you can see why your character might get just a little bit worried by it. Did you know that once upon a time, Spiffo was actually going to be in a completely different game before Project Zomboid? Well, at least an early version of the raccoon that we know and love today. In fact, this goes for a bunch of the cuddly toys resembling our favorite woodland creatures that you can find throughout Project Zomboid. A fighting game featuring these furry friends called Paws was going to be released on the Xbox 360 until it was cancelled on March 8th, 2011. Many of the individuals that worked on Paws became part of the team that brought us the game we're so fanatically in love with today. You can actually find several references to Paws throughout the world of Project Zomboid, such as a TV show, a Paws pinball machine, Paws posters, and signs for Paws the movie showings in cinemas. I wonder how Project Zomboid would look today if Paws had been finished. Speaking of more in-game references, did you know that 2 of the Project Zomboid developers' faces faces can be found on some in-game items. There's an in-game shirt with developer RJ's face on it, who, if you're not familiar, is the developer that's working on Animals, included as part of Build 42. There's also another developer's face on the surface of a lunchbox item, and this time it's Will that you can find. Nice to see a couple of the devs getting some face time, and yes, I know that was awful, and no, I'm not sorry. Alright, so this next one is actually more about the history of Project Zomboid than anything in-game, but I know a lot of people that are watching this won't have heard this before, or worse, you might have heard the story as it's been mistold before. The story as it's been told on Reddit many times before is that the developers of Project Zomboid had a laptop stolen containing the entirety of the game's codebase during development, which hadn't been backed up, therefore causing the developers to lose all of their progress and have to start from scratch. Except the actual story is that the developers had 3 laptops stolen all at once on the day that they were moving into a new apartment. Someone had taken the opportunity to break in whilst they were out having a few drinks to celebrate. The game had been backed up just over a month before the theft, and as such, just over a month's worth of progress was lost. The falsified story was actually spread as part of a misinformation campaign from some backers who believed they were never going to see Project Zomboid and that it was all a scam. It was so effective that we still hear that mistold story today. A massively negative response from the community followed, and the developers involved still to this day say that whilst the delay itself wasn't all that big, the ramifications on the mental health of several members of the team caused monumental problems for workflow and likely lost them a few more months of productivity altogether. Looking back from where we are now, Project Zomboid has had a crazy story, and I'd encourage anyone to watch a video that I've linked in the description, which is a presentation that was presented over 10 years ago by the developers called How Not to Make a Game. It's a fascinating watch if you want to know more about Project Zomboid's lore. I've also left a link to the Reddit thread where this whole event regarding the stolen laptops was discussed recently, with the developers being involved directly with the thread itself. This was my source of information alongside the presentation for this obscure fact about the birth of Project Zomboid. Okay, so Project Zomboid history lesson complete, let's go back to another in-game tip that you might not know about. Now, when it comes to leveling crafting skills in Project Zomboid, many players choose to seek out VHS tapes that can be used in conjunction with skill books to gain massive amounts of XP. That much is fairly standard. However, what you might not be aware of is that a select few of the VHS tapes that are otherwise just for flavor purposes do have a single tick of XP that can be gained in certain skills from watching them. For example, the movie Dead Wrong gives a very small amount of aiming and reloading skill. The movie Mother's Boy gives a very small amount of the short blade skill. And one more for you, Z Squad Season 2 Episode 3 gives a very small amount of both mechanics and metalworking experience. There's a page for this on the Project Zomboid wiki if you search VHS, just in case you want to see a full list of all the XP gains available. Alright, so last in-game tip for Project Zomboid. You might be aware that you can lock doors in-game using keys that are found on zombies or in the world. The next time you happen to find a door that you can lock, consider dismantling the door. Turns out that the lock is actually saved to the doorknob component. So if you take that and build a new door with it, you can then lock the new door that you've built, just like you did with the previous one. Very, very situational, but all the same, it's a level of detail that only Project Zomboid could bring to the survival genre. So, before I wrap up this video, one last fact that some of you may not know. If you sit around long enough on the main menu screen, you'll actually see some of your favorite content creators mentioned in the "with thanks to" section at the top right of the screen. That includes individuals like Ambiguous Amphibian, Clean, and myself. To this day, it's still one of the coolest moments of my YouTube career that I've been included in the game that played such a major part in my life. Much love to the Indie Stone for this one. Alright, so that's it from me in this one, folks, but if there's any obscure facts that you know about Project Zomboid that you think other players would be interested in knowing, please do feel free to share them in the comments section. As always, I'd really like to use this video as a platform for some other knowledge from the community. A huge thank you to my existing patrons for their support and for joining me on our 2 Project Zomboid servers. If you're interested in joining them and trying out some unique mods specially commissioned for those servers, there's a link in the description to join them. Thanks folks, and I will see you all in the next one.